Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm C or Sierra, and I love all things bookish, coziness, and staying just barely organized enough to get through the day. Today we're going to be diving into one of my favorite behind the scenes tools, my ARC Tracker spreadsheet. It is super simple, totally customizable, and it keeps me from drowning in unread ARCs and missing publication days. Let me know in the comments if you're currently tracking your ARCs in any way or if you've been meaning to start. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your NetGalley requests, your author requests, and any other reviews due, then this one's for you. For those of you who may be newer to the bookish community, ARCs are advanced readers' copies which are provided to influencers in exchange for a honest review. And these are given for free, and you can get them through things like NetGalley, requesting directly from the author or publisher, or joining an influencer program. And these are just free copies that are provided to help get word of the mouth out. Before I started this ARC tracker, I was currently using this little schedule book where I was just writing the publication dates in there to keep track of. Like on the calendar, I would write, this is the day that this book comes out, so I need to review it by then. But I didn't feel like this was helpful to me because I wasn't actually looking in advance and preparing myself to read it in advance and write the review by then. So that just wasn't working. ARCs can be really difficult to keep track of, especially when you have so many going at once. You don't want to miss the deadline of when it's published, or the deadline that is for when you can last download the book, and you definitely don't want to be scrambling to try to write a review last minute. So this spreadsheet helps me to prioritize my ARC readings, stay on top of my deadlines, keep the publishers happy of course, and plan my content for Bookstagram and BookTube and stuff. So let's take a look at my spreadsheet. I use Google Sheets because I like that I can open it on my phone anywhere. I already have this one built into all of my other important sheets on here, so I'm just going to show you how it works. These first three are all basic information. I write down the title, the author, and the series. The next column, I write the release date to prioritize my reading and posting of the ones that are released earlier. Date requested and approved is to track my wait times between when I was approved for this ARC and when I posted. Post date due, I mostly use this one for Instagram specifically, but this date is just when I want everything reviewed and posted by at the latest. Format is pretty obvious, whether I get an ebook, physical, or audiobook. I write down the genre so that if I do have lots of times for my ARCs, I can choose by the genre I'm currently feeling like reading. My page count is so I can estimate approximately how much time the book's going to take me to complete, so that I'm not trying to complete like a 600-page book the day before it's due. My status is so that I can know where I'm at in each book in the process. So starting with obvious the unreads, and then in progress means I'm currently reading it. Read obviously means I finished it, but I haven't done anything with it. Reviewed is for if I've posted it on Goodreads and Storygraph. That's where I usually post first. And then reviewed and posted means that I've reviewed it on Storygraph, Goodreads, and I've also posted it on my Instagram or whatever social media I'm planning to post it on. And then finished means that I've added all of those links into my spreadsheet and onto NetGalley or wherever I'm reading the ARC from, so that way it is complete and finalized and it adds to my percentage on NetGalley and whatnot. So that is all of the statuses I add. Review posted is where I add the links for each review posted. GR stands for Goodreads, SG stands for Storygraph, IG obviously stands for Instagram, and then NG is NetGalley. And so I don't always have each of these here because I don't always post it on each of these, especially if I'm not getting it from NetGalley. But I like to have these here to easily access, especially if I'm planning to request an ARC from the same publisher. I can link them to previous ARCs I've read and reviewed from them. Rating is definitely not a necessity here. I just like to track which publishers and authors I was particularly vibing with so that I will know in the future whether I would want to request it again from them. Publisher and source. The publisher is basically there for the same purpose as the review links. It's easy for me to track which publishers I enjoyed and what books I've read from them in case I want to request a future ARC from them. Sources, particularly, most of my ARCs come from NetGalley, but I do like to write it down if it wasn't. For example, if the author reached out to me on Instagram or requested it directly, or if it was on their page. Notes, I typically write like if anything stood out to me, any content warnings, any extra due dates. Sometimes there's like download due dates and stuff. I like to write those all down just in case. That's all of my columns here and all that I info that I add into here for details. And then of course I organize it by different things. Usually I format it by the status, so I'll know what's unread and whatnot at the top. But it just depends on what I'm needing for it right now. There are lots of ways you can customize this spreadsheet for whatever you might need. You can create a priority column so you can organize them by how urgent they are, or color code them for the same instance. You can use different tabs for monthly organization so you know which arcs are in which month. You can use filters in your columns to organize by unread or upcoming releases. You can add a content ideas column for you to write about what you might want to post on Bookstagram or Booktube or wherever you post. And lastly, this is one I'm still currently trying to figure out how to do, but you can sync it with your calendar so that way you can show it on both things. So you can see it by calendar and by your cute little tracker. I've made this into a template and you can use that in the link in my description, or you can make your own based off of this video. In my previous video, I showed you how to create a TBR spreadsheet, so you could adjust that one as you might like for the ARC tracker. You could add a new tab so that they're on the same thing so you can see both your TBR and your ARCs. That's all up to you. Now you should be able to use your tracker to stay on top of your content you're making and the reviews you have to get in. I like to put on my calendar separately which reviews I have to have when. I always keep track of all of my posts that I have. But I use this and I put them side by side with my calendar so I can figure out what posts I need to post for this specific arc, and that helps me keep track of that on a calendar format. I also have a hopeful spreadsheet, which is different from my TBR because that's just all the books that I want to read. I organize my hopefuls by month, and so whenever I get a new arc, I put it into nearby the month that I need to review it by, so that way I know that I'm reading it by then. This is separate from my calendar of content creating, but just so I know when-ish I should read this. And that's about it. Your spreadsheet does not need to be fancy or pretty. It just needs to be functional. And that's kind of what I told myself as I was going through this, because I felt like there was a lot that I wanted to improve, but it also was just helpful in its simplicity. Because if I had too much embellishments on it, I might get more confused. So I just want it to be functional. I check the spreadsheet weekly, and especially when I'm planning content. Usually I plan my content more than a week in advance, but I do like to look at this as much as possible so I make sure that I'm not missing out on anything. This spreadsheet has helped me stay so organized with my arcs, so I hope it helps you as well. I'm never gonna go back to writing them out like that. It's just so much easier to keep track of here and be able to adjust it on there without having to like cross out things on my calendar and be like, no, actually I have to move it to this day or whatever, you know. And some little tips for this is just don't request too much. Do what you can handle, but don't stress yourself out with your arcs, of course. And always be honest in quality over quantity in terms of arcs. If you found this helpful, please let me know in the comments. If not, or otherwise, let me know your #1 arc organization tip. Thank you for making it to this point. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more bookish content, and hit that bell icon if you want to keep in the know of what I'll be posting. Until next time, happy reading, stay cozy, and keep your spreadsheets updated. Good job, me. Or for what you currently need in your arcs.